Partridge which road they should take. "If you take my advice," said Partridge, "you will turn around and return home." "I have no home to return to," cried Tom. "Even if my godfather would take me back, I could not bear to live there without Sophia. Now, since I cannot follow her, let us follow the army. I believe they went this way." And by chance Tom chose the road which Sophia had taken. They marched on for several miles and arrived at another crossroads. Here a poor man in rags asked them for money. Partridge was very rude to him, but Tom gave him a coin. "Master," cried the man, after thanking him, "I have something interesting here, which I found about 2 miles away. As you are kind, I know you will not think I am a thief. Would you like to buy it?" He then passed a little gold notebook to Tom. He opened it, and, guess, reader, what he felt, saw on the first page the words Sophia Weston, written in her own fair hand. He kissed and kissed the page. While he was kissing the book, as if he had a delicious little cake in his mouth, a piece of paper fell from its pages to the ground. Partridge picked it up and gave it to Tom, who shouted that it was a banknote for £100. Partridge was delighted at this news, and so was the honest man, though it is fair to say that perhaps he was honest because he could not read. Tom immediately told him that he knew the owner of the notebook and would follow her and return it. He paid him £1 for the notebook and asked him to lead them to the place where he found it. They then walked together to the place where Sophia had unhappily dropped the notebook, and where the man had happily found it. Tom opened the notebook 100 times, kissed it as often, and talked to himself as he walked. When they arrived at the place, the poor man, who had been thinking about the banknote, now said to Tom, "Please, give me half the money I found." Tom refused. "I will give it to the right owner," he said. "But let me write your name in the notebook, and one day you may have a reward." Our travellers then left the man and moved on so fast that they had no breath for conversation. Tom thought about Sophia. Partridge thought about the banknote. And as they came into the next town, they met 3 horses, led by a boy whom Partridge recognized as the guide who came to Upton with Sophia. The boy told Tom that Sophia did not need the horses any more, as she had continued her journey in a carriage. Tom quickly offered to pay him to take them to London instead. The boy agreed, and now Tom and Partridge continued their journey on horseback. Reader, my pen will not describe the roads, the rivers, and the other beauties which passed by as our travellers rode towards London, but one cold, wet night there was a conversation which I will repeat. "Sir," said Partridge, "we have had no dinner today, yet you look fresh and strong. Do you live on love?" "This dear notebook is my food," said Tom, "and very rich it is too." "Rich, yes," cried Partridge, "for it has enough in it to buy us 100 dinners." "Partridge," said Tom, "what are you suggesting?" "Oh, nothing dishonest," answered Partridge. "Where is the dishonesty in spending a little now, if you repay it later? As your own money is nearly finished, where can be the harm, if you need it? A great lady does not need it, especially if she is now with a lord." "Partridge," said Tom firmly, "finding and spending is the same as stealing, and stealing is a hanging matter. This note is the property of my own dear angel, and I will put it in no other hands but hers, even if I am starving." Chapter 17. Tom receives an invitation. When they arrived in London, Tom sent Partridge to find lodgings while he began his search for Sophia. He started looking for the house where the Irish lord lived. He walked through the streets until 11 that night, and began again early next morning. At last he found himself in the right street, and someone directed him to the lord's house. Tom was dressed in country clothes, and these showed signs of many days on the road, so when he knocked on the door, the servant who opened it was not very polite. He said there were no ladies in the house, and that the lord was busy. Fortunately, another servant was listening. He followed Tom into the street and offered, for a sum of money, to show him where the two ladies were staying. It was very bad luck that Tom arrived at Harriet's door about 10 minutes after Sophia had left. The maid took a message upstairs, but Harriet sent back a message to say she was too busy to see Tom. He was sure that Sophia was in the house with her cousin, and probably angry about what had happened at Upton. He told the servant that he would call again in the evening, and spent all day in the street, watching the door, but nobody came out. In the evening he returned to Mrs. Fitzpatrick's house. This time she agreed to see him. Tom asked about Sophia, but Harriet told him nothing. She said that he could call again the following evening, then sent him away, as she was expecting another visitor. As nothing unusual happened during the next visit, which was from her friend, the Irish lord, we will pass quickly to the next morning. Harriet worried about her cousin's unexpected visitor, and decided to ask the advice of Sophia's relative, Lady Bellaston. She got up before the sun, and at this unfashionable hour she went to Lady Bellaston's house, hoping to see her while Sophia was still in bed. Lady Bellaston was very interested in Harriet's story. She especially liked her description of the young man, a very handsome fellow, and so charming. Lady Bellaston thought she should see the fellow before deciding what to do. She promised to visit Harriet that evening, and told her to make sure Mr. Jones was there. That winter's day was one of the shortest in the year, but to Tom it seemed one of the longest. Though 6 o'clock was the polite time to visit, it was soon after 5 when he knocked again on Harriet's door. She received him kindly, but still said she knew nothing about Sophia. After some time, Tom decided to explain that he had a large sum of money that he wanted to deliver to Sophia. He showed Harriet the notebook and told her what it contained, and how it was found. They were now interrupted by the arrival of an elegant lady, who was followed a little later by the Irish lord. Everyone bowed low to each other. Then a brilliant conversation began, which, though it was very fine, I shall not repeat. Tom watched this fashionable scene in polite silence, as nobody took any notice of him. At last, Harriet asked Tom to tell her where she might find him the next day, and he soon left the company. Now the elegant visitors took a great deal of notice of him, but nothing they said was very kind, so I shall not repeat that either. Lady Bellaston then left. The lord, for some reason or other, now made Harriet promise she would not see Mr. Jones again, and as nothing else passed between them of importance to us, we will return to our hero's affairs. The place where Tom had sent Partridge to find lodgings was a house in Bond Street, where Mr. Allworthy always stayed when he was in London. It was owned by Mrs. Miller, a good woman whose husband had died, leaving her with 2 young daughters and not very much else. Though Tom did not know this, Mr. Allworthy had given Mrs. Miller the house and a sum of money for furniture, so that she could earn money by renting rooms. Tom had a room on the 2nd floor, and Partridge one on the 4th. On the 1st floor was a pleasant young gentleman called Mr. Nightingale. When Tom arrived back that evening, Nightingale invited him to share a bottle of wine. Their friendly conversation was suddenly interrupted by a maid who brought in a packet which had been delivered by a stranger for Mr. Jones. Inside was a mask, a ticket for a party the next evening, and a message that said, "The Queen of Fairies sends you this. Be kind to her." "You are a lucky man," said Nightingale. "I am sure these were sent by a lady who wants to meet you at the party." Tom did feel lucky. If Mrs. Fitzpatrick had sent the packet, he might possibly see his Sophia at the party. He decided to go, and invited his new friend to go with him. The next evening, Nightingale invited Tom to eat with him in town before the party, but Tom excused himself. To tell the truth, he had not a penny in his pocket, and had to borrow some coins from Partridge. Partridge took the opportunity to advise Tom, once again, to go home. "How often must I tell you that I have no home to go to?" answered Tom. "When Mr. Allworthy gave me the envelope of money, I don't know how much it was, but I'm sure he was very generous. He said he never wanted to see me again." Partridge had never heard of this money before. He asked what had happened to it. Tom told him how he had left the envelope beside a stream in Somerset, and how he and Black George had gone back to look for it, but without success. Then a message came saying that Mr. Nightingale was back from dinner and was ready to leave for the party. Chapter 18. Sophia has a rival. When the two men arrived at the party, they walked about together for a while. Then Mr. Nightingale left Tom alone. As everyone was wearing masks, he looked for ladies with Sophia's shape and spoke to them, hoping they would answer with Sophia's voice, but none of them did. Suddenly, a masked woman tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Follow me." He followed her to the end of the room, where she sat down and said, in a soft voice, "Miss Weston is not here." "My good fairy queen," said Tom, "you have cleverly changed your voice. But I know you are Mrs. Fitzpatrick. Please tell me where I might find Sophia." The mask answered, "Do you think I would encourage my cousin in an affair which would end in her ruin? And did your fairy queen invite you here to speak about a rival?" Tom realized that for this lady to bring him to Sophia, he must please her. So he began to be more charming. The two walked and talked for some time. To Tom's surprise, the lady greeted everyone by name, even though they wore masks. "People of fashion," she explained, "know each other anywhere, and to them the masks are childish. You will see that they get bored quickly at this kind of party and leave early. I myself am bored, and I believe you are too. I will leave now, and I hope you will not follow me. Indeed, I won't know what to say if you do." From this, Tom realized that he should follow the lady, and he walked behind her carriage all the way to a house where the door opened to admit her and her follower. Once inside, Tom begged her to take off her mask, and when at last she did, he discovered not Mrs. Fitzpatrick, but Lady Bellaston. After that they had a very ordinary conversation, which, as it lasted from 2 until 6 o'clock in the morning, I shall not bore you with. The lady then promised to look for Sophia, and they agreed to meet again in the evening. Tom returned to his lodgings. After a few hours' sleep, he called Partridge and showed him a banknote of £50, saying he could now repay his debt. Though Partridge was glad, he was also suspicious. As Tom was out all night, Partridge imagined his desperate master must have robbed someone. The reader must imagine the same, unless he suspects the generosity of Lady Bellaston. In fact, the money was from the lady. Though she did not give much to hospitals and churches, she did think that young men without a penny in their pockets needed her help. That evening, Mrs. Miller came home from a visit to her cousin. The cousin was expecting a baby. Her husband was out of work, her children were starving, and the youngest was very sick. When he heard this sad story, Tom took Mrs. Miller to one side and gave her his purse, asking her to spend as much as she needed to help these poor people. Mrs. Miller was amazed, cried, took £10, and said, "I already know one kind man in the world. Now I know another." Mrs. Miller then told Tom what Mr. Allworthy had done for her when her husband died. That evening Tom met Lady Bellaston again. They had another long conversation, but as it was just as ordinary as the one the previous evening, I shall not give details. Tom grew more and more impatient to see Sophia, but if he mentioned her to Lady Bellaston, she became angry. He was in a very uncomfortable situation. As Lady Bellaston had grown violently fond of him, he was now one of the best-dressed men about town. He believed her when she said that Sophia was deliberately hiding from him, and he could not forget that if ever they did come together, her father would never forgive her. But even if he did not love Sophia, Tom could never love Lady Bellaston, as her generosity deserved. She was in the autumn of life, and though she still had roses in her cheeks, it was art, and not nature, that put them there. The next afternoon, while he was trying to decide what to do, a message came from Lady Bellaston. The friend's house where she had been meeting Tom was not available, and they would have to meet at her own house at 7 exactly. Tom arrived at the house a little earlier than 7, and Lady Bellaston had not yet returned from dinner. He was waiting in the hall when the door opened, and in came no other than Sophia herself. Lady Bellaston had cleverly sent her to the theatre so she could be alone with Tom, but Sophia had not enjoyed the play and had left quite early. Sophia first went to look in a mirror. Behind her own lovely face, she suddenly saw Tom. Turning to him, she screamed, and he moved forward to catch her before she fainted. To describe their looks and thoughts at this moment is beyond my power. If you have ever been in love, you will feel in your own heart what passed in theirs. In the time they had alone, Tom returned Sophia's notebook and the banknote. Then he fell to his knees and apologized to her about what had happened in the inn at Upton. Sophia was very glad to hear that he had never seen Mrs. Waters again, but was angry that Tom had told people in the inn that he was escaping from Sophia's love. Tom, who was surprised at these words, was able to trace them back to Partridge, and swore more than once that he would put him to death as soon as he got home. Things were now going so well that Tom began to say some words that sounded like a proposal of marriage, when suddenly in came Lady Bellaston. "Miss Weston," she said, with admirable control, "I thought you were at the theatre." Sophia, who had no suspicions about Tom's reason for being in the house, explained why she had come home early. Then she said that the gentleman with her had returned her notebook. Both the ladies then thanked him, and Tom, playing a very complicated game, asked for a high reward. "It is, ladies, the honour of visiting you here again." "Do you know, Sophie, dear," said Lady Bellaston after Tom had left, "I had a horrible suspicion when I first came into the room that the young gentleman was Mr. Jones." "Indeed!" cried Sophia, laughing. "Oh, Sophie,
"Sophie," cried the lady, "I can see by your colour that you still have Mr. Jones in your thoughts."
"On my honour, madam," said Sophia, "Mr. Jones is as unimportant to me as the gentleman who just left us."
"Then I promise I will not mention his name again," said Lady Bellaston, and the two ladies went to bed, each feeling rather clever. Sophia lay awake all night, but Lady Bellaston did not. She was enjoying her secret meetings with Tom, and next day she saw a way to remove her young rival from the scene. Chapter 19. Tom proposes marriage. Sophia had another admirer, an English lord, who had met her more than once at Lady Bellaston's. He had noticed her at the theatre, and was disappointed when she left early. Next morning he called to say he hoped she was not unwell. He stayed for 2 hours, and in that time he fell in love. Lady Bellaston was pleased to see her noble friend paying so much attention to Sophia. She took him to one side and said, "Lord Fellamar, are you in love with my young cousin from the country?"
"I believe I am, madam," said Lord Fellamar. "Will you tell her father that I wish to marry her?"
"I will indeed," answered the lady, "and I am sure he will agree. But there is one problem. You have a rival."
Lord Fellamar looked disappointed.
"But," added the lady, "though she loves this rival, he is a beggar and a bastard. I believe you can solve this problem, but not by gentle methods."
"What do you mean, my lady?" asked Lord Fellamar.
"If you are willing to be bold, my lord, you could be married to my cousin within a week," said Lady Bellaston.
Lady Bellaston and Lord Fellamar then made a plan. At 7 that evening, when Sophia was alone in her room, reading a tragic novel, the door suddenly opened, and in came Lord Fellamar. Sophia dropped her book, and Lord Fellamar made a low bow. "Madam," he said, "as you have my heart, you cannot be surprised by a visit from its owner." "Are you out of your senses, my lord?" answered Sophia.
"I am, madam," cried Lord Fellamar, taking her hand. "You are my angel, and you must be mine."
Sophia pulled her hand away and tried to leave, but Lord Fellamar caught her in his arms and said, "I cannot live without you, so I must make you mine." "I will scream," said Sophia, and she did. But Lady Bellaston had taken care to send the servants away. Suddenly, an enormous noise filled the house, and help came to poor Sophia in a very unexpected way.
"Where is she?"
cried the loud voice of Mr. Weston.
"Where is my daughter? I know she's in this house."
And the door flew open to let in Sophia's father and all his followers. I shall never be able to describe the situation that followed, unless the reader's imagination helps me. Sophia fell into a chair, pale, frightened, and full of relief. Lord Fellamar sat down near her, amazed, frightened, and ashamed. Mr. Weston's clothes were rather untidy. He was, in plain English, drunk. Lady Bellaston now entered the room. After an unsteady bow, Mr. Weston said,
"Sophie, here is your cousin. In front of her, won't you tell me that you will marry one of the best young men in England?"
"Sir," said Lord Fellamar, thinking Mr. Weston meant him, "I am the happy man who will marry your daughter."
"You are a son of the devil!" shouted Weston. "She will not marry you in spite of your fine clothes. Come, madam!"
And Mr. Weston rushed his daughter into a carriage and ordered it to drive to his lodgings. When her maid Honour tried to come too, he refused, saying,
"No more escapes, Sophie. I will get you a better maid."
Luckily, Honour knew where to find Tom, and she went straight to his lodgings to tell him what had happened. She had no idea how Mr. Weston had found Sophia or where he had taken her. In fact, Harriet Fitzpatrick had written to her aunt, Mrs. Weston, to tell her that Sophia was in London, staying with Lady Bellaston. As soon as she received the letter, Mrs. Weston told her brother where to find his lost sheep. He immediately sent word to Mr. Allworthy and Mr. Blifil, told his servants to get the horses ready, and set off for London, taking Mr. Supple, the priest, with him. Fortune seemed determined to be Tom's enemy. He now had 2 rivals, and once again he had lost his dear Sophia. Tom now tried to avoid Lady Bellaston, but letters from her were delivered every hour. When his friend Nightingale saw how worried Tom was, he wanted to help him. "Dear Tom," said Nightingale, "are you troubled by the Queen of the Fairies? Oh, please don't be angry with me for mentioning what the whole town knows. Are you in love with her?" Tom sighed and said, "No, my friend, but I owe so much to her that I don't know how to end our affair. You are not the first young man she has captured like this," said Nightingale, "so you needn't worry about her reputation. But as you are a man of honour, let me tell you a way. Propose marriage to her." "Marriage?" cried Tom. "Yes, marriage," answered Nightingale. "She will refuse." Nightingale persuaded Tom that there was no danger that the lady would accept his proposal, so he wrote her a charming letter. He soon received a short answer. "Sir, I see your purpose. You wish me to put my whole fortune in your power. Do you imagine that I am a fool? If you come to my house again, I shall not be at home." "Well," said Nightingale, "you now have your freedom." Tom could not thank him enough. Chapter 20. A kidnapping is planned. Mr. Weston took Sophia to his lodgings in Piccadilly, and once again asked her to agree to marry Mr. Blifil. When she refused, he locked her in her room and put the key in his own pocket. He swore he would not let her out until she promised to marry Blifil. Lord Fellamar sent an apology to Mr. Weston, and asked for permission to visit his daughter as a lover. The messenger took the opportunity to tell Mr. Weston about his lord's great position and fortune. To this Weston said,
"Look, sir, my daughter's marriage is already arranged. But if it was not, I would never marry her to a lord. I hate all lords, and will have nothing to do with them."
He then kicked the man out with shouts and curses. In her prison room above, Sophia also began to kick and shout. Her father immediately ran upstairs, unlocked the door, and found her pale and breathless. "Oh, my dear sir," she said, "I was so frightened by all that loud noise. What happened? Were you hurt?"
"Just a quarrel about you, Sophie. All my misfortunes are about you. Come, do be a good girl. Blifil will be here in a day or two.
Make me the happiest man in the world, and I will make you the happiest woman. You shall have the finest clothes in London, the finest jewels, and a carriage with 6 horses. I promised Allworthy to give you half of my property when you marry, and you shall have the other half when I die. You are my only joy on earth, my little Sophie."
Mr. Weston had tears in his eyes, and so did Sophia. "Do you really wish me to be happy, dear father? Then let me marry nobody. Let me come home and be your Sophie again."
"No, Sophie!" he cried in a voice like thunder. "You will marry Blifil. You will have him, even if you hang yourself the next morning."
And he marched out of the room, leaving his poor, terrified daughter in a flood of tears. Mr. Weston had brought several servants to town with him, and among them was his favourite, the gamekeeper, Black George. Meals were taken regularly to Sophia's room, but she ate very little. So when Black George asked his master if he could tempt her with a little cooked chicken, Mr. Weston agreed. They went upstairs together. Mr. Weston unlocked the door, and Black George carried in her dinner. He told Sophia that the chicken was full of eggs, and left it on her table. Sophia was very fond of eggs, so when she was alone again, she opened the chicken. It was full of eggs. There was also a letter, which had not been put there by nature, but as the result of a lucky meeting in the street between Partridge and Black George that morning. Sophia immediately tore open the letter and read it. It told her that her Tom loved her, that his arms were ready to receive her if she wanted to escape, but that if she decided to make peace with her father by forgetting her lover, he would understand. Now a new noise came from downstairs. Mr. Weston was arguing loudly with his sister, who had just arrived.
"How can you lock up your daughter?" cried Mrs. Weston. "Have I not often told you that women in a free country cannot be treated like this? We are as free as men. You must let me take my niece with me to my own lodgings. These rooms are not fit for a woman of quality."
Mr. Weston finally agreed. He did not want his sister to change her will and leave her wealth to somebody else. From her aunt's lodgings, Sophia managed to send a reply to Tom's letter. He spent 3 hours reading and kissing it, for it told him she would never marry another man. It also said she had promised her aunt not to see or talk to him. When Blifil arrived in London, Mr. Weston took him straight to see Sophia. To their surprise, her aunt was a little cool. She told them it was not polite to come so early in the day, and sent them away until the afternoon. Actually, she had another reason for delaying Blifil's visit. She wanted to visit Lady Bellaston, and find out more about the lord who wanted to marry Sophia. What she heard about him from her cousin was very satisfactory indeed. Lady Bellaston now had every reason to hate Sophia, and she told Mrs. Weston a secret. "This will make you laugh," she said. "Would you believe that young Jones tried to make love to me? Look, here is a letter he wrote me." And she passed her Tom's letter with the proposal of marriage. "I am astonished," said Mrs. Weston. "Whatever did you do with this fellow?" "Whatever I did. I do not want him as a husband," laughed Lady Bellaston. "I tried that once, and once is enough for any reasonable woman. Please take the letter, if you think you can use it." When her cousin had left with the letter, Lady Bellaston received Lord Fellamar, who was still determined to win Sophia for himself. He told her about the way his messenger had been treated by Sophia's father. Lady Bellaston simply laughed. She told him the father was a country fellow, not worth worrying about. His sister, Mrs. Weston, would persuade him to accept the Lord's proposal. The real problem was the young bastard whom Sophia loved. "Perhaps, my lord," she suggested, "you could find some way to remove him. Kidnap him, perhaps. Send him to sea. I could tell you where he lives, if you wish to know." Chapter 21. Mr. Weston Sings for Joy. It was now that fortune really deserted our hero. He received an unexpected invitation from Mrs. Fitzpatrick, who perhaps wanted to try what Lady Bellaston no longer wanted. By now Harriet thought herself safe from her husband, who had gone to look for her in Bath. But when she had written to tell Mrs. Weston where to look for Sophia, her aunt had told Mr. Fitzpatrick where to look for his wife. It was chance that brought Tom to Harriet Fitzpatrick's door just as her husband appeared on the scene. It was jealousy that persuaded Mr. Fitzpatrick that Tom had been making love to his wife. And it was temper that made him strike Tom on the head and pull out his sword. Tom was amazed, pulled out his own sword, and drove half of it into the gentleman's body. Now, it was Fitzpatrick's turn to look amazed.
"I am a dead man," he cried.
A gang of rough men rushed up to get hold of Tom. These were Lord Felimar's men, who had been following Tom, waiting for a chance to kidnap him.
"Well, Jack,"
laughed one of them,
"he's not going to sea now. He's going somewhere worse when that man dies."
Similar jokes were made about Tom until a doctor came to look at Fitzpatrick, and the police arrived to arrest Tom. The doctor said he believed Fitzpatrick would die, so Tom was taken to a prison. Partridge found him there next morning. He brought the news that Fitzpatrick was dead, and a letter from Sophia, which Black George had passed to him. It said, "My aunt has just shown me a letter which you wrote to Lady Bellaston. I never want to hear your name again. S.W." Fortune now threatens to see our hero hanged in public, and if our reader enjoys such scenes, I think he should book a seat in the first row now. This I faithfully promise. If he does not find some natural means to escape a sad end, I will not help him with unnatural means. You can trust me not to bring in gods, or spirits, or fairies. We must now return to Mrs. Miller's house, where Mr. Allworthy had arrived with his nephew, Blifil. Mrs. Miller wanted to change Mr. Allworthy's view of Tom, his adopted son. She told him how Tom had given money to her cousin. "He always speaks lovingly of you, sir," she said.
"You surprise me, madam," said Mr. Allworthy. "You have not seen the side of him which shocks my nephew and myself."
"I see only that he has enemies," said Mrs. Miller. "But what they say of him cannot be true." At this moment, Blifil came in from the street with an excited look on his face. "What do you think, sir?" he cried. "I'm sorry to be the one to bring such bad news. Mr. Jones, to whom you were so very good, has killed a man." Allworthy looked shocked. He turned to Mrs. Miller and cried,
"Well, madam, what do you say now?"
"I say, sir, that if it is true, the man he killed must be at fault. I never saw a man so kind and so sweet-tempered as Mr. Jones. He was loved by every one in this house, and every one who came near it." They were interrupted by a loud knocking at the door. It was Mr. Weston.
"Neighbour!"
he cried. as he entered the room.
"All this time we have been afraid of a young bastard, and now there is the devil of a lord, who may be a bastard too, for all I care, but he will never have my daughter."
It took some time for Mr. Allworthy to find out what Mr. Weston meant. Lady Bellaston and Mrs. Weston had been trying to persuade him not to refuse Lord Fellamar's offer. When Mr. Allworthy understood the situation, he instantly told Mr. Weston that Sophia should never be forced to marry Blifil against her will. If she chose to marry the lord, he wished her every happiness in this noble marriage.
"She will marry Blifil," said Mr. Weston, "for 3 reasons. First, is she not my child? Second, do I not govern my own child? And third, am I asking her to do anything for me? No, it is to make her happy."
Blifil now spoke. "Mr. Weston is very kind to prefer me to Lord Fellamar," he said. "While I would never wish to win his daughter by violence, perhaps her heart will be free when she hears that Mr. Jones is in prison for murder."
"What's that?"
cried Weston.
"Murder? Is he a murderer? And is there any chance of seeing him hanged? I have never heard better news in my life. Tol de rol, tol lol de rol."
And he sang and danced about the room. Several true friends now came to visit Tom in prison. First, the faithful Partridge came to tell him that Mr. Fitzpatrick was still alive. Then Nightingale came, with Mrs. Miller. "Even if the fellow dies," he said, "you will not hang. It was an accident, because he attacked you first." "Yes, he did," sighed Tom. "But I do not want to be responsible for another man's death. And there is something else that makes me miserable." "Come, come, Mr. Jones," said Mrs. Miller, who had heard from Partridge about Sophia's letter to Tom. "Things will be better soon. Mr. Blifil has no chance with the lady." Tom asked the good woman to take a letter to Sophia, which she did, and there were tears on Sophia's pillow that night. Chapter 22. The Truth Comes Out. Before we return to Tom, we will take one more look at Sophia. Her aunt could not understand why she did not want to bring honour on her family by marrying Lord Fellamar. "Don't you want a noble name?" she asked. Sophia did not. "He behaved so rudely," she explained. "I'm almost ashamed to tell you. He caught me in his arms, pulled me down, put his hand into my dress, and kissed my breast with such violence that I have a mark there still."
"Indeed?"
said Mrs. Weston. "Yes, indeed, madam," said Sophia. "Luckily my father came in at that moment."
"I am astonished," cried her aunt. "It is an insult. I have had lovers, many lovers, but no man kissed more of me than my cheek. Oh, I was cruel. I refused them all."
"Then, dear aunt, will you not let me refuse this one?" Mrs. Weston did agree that Sophia might be a little cool to Lord Fellamar, and Sophia hoped she could now persuade him that it was useless to pursue her. But an unfortunate accident happened, which made her aunt furious again. Sophia's maid saw Tom's letter and told Mrs. Weston.
"Miss Weston," her aunt cried, "I hear you have received a letter from a murderer. I am disgusted. I shall return you to your father tomorrow morning."
The next time Nightingale visited Tom in prison, he had some bad news. "I have heard," he said, "that the gang of men who saw you fight with Mr. Fitzpatrick are ready to tell the judge that you hit him first." "Then they lie," exclaimed Tom. "Why would they do that?" Mrs. Miller then arrived to say she had delivered Tom's letter, but when she returned for a reply, Sophia had gone. Tom said he now had no interest in life, and was ready to meet God. After his death, his name might be cleared. A guard then brought in a message from a lady who wished to see Tom. His friends left, and the lady was sent in. Tom was astonished to see that it was Mrs. Waters. The reader will remember that Mrs. Waters left the inn at Upton in a carriage with Mr. Fitzpatrick and his friend, and travelled to Bath in their company. As Mrs. Fitzpatrick had run away, Mr. Fitzpatrick took the opportunity to examine Mrs. Waters carefully, and he decided to offer her the position of wife. She accepted, and lived with him in Bath. Mrs. Waters had come to London with Mr. Fitzpatrick without knowing the reason for his visit. He had never mentioned a wife to her, and he had never mentioned the name of Jones. It was only when he was getting better that he told her the story of the fight. She had brought some good news for Tom. "By an amazing chance," she said, "I know the man you hurt, Mr. Jones, and I promise you that he is not dying. He will also tell the judge that he struck the first blow." This unexpected news made Tom very happy, and he enjoyed talking with Mrs. Waters for a little longer, and laughing about their adventures at Upton. Just after Mrs. Waters left, Partridge came into the room with a white face. He had been in the next room, listening. "Oh, sir," he said, "was that the woman you were with at Upton? Did you really go to bed with her? Oh, sir, may God forgive you. That woman was Jenny Jones. You have been to bed with your own mother." Tom became a picture of horror. For a time the two men stared wildly at each other. Then Tom begged Partridge to run after Mrs. Waters, but she had disappeared. Some hours later, a note came from Mrs. Waters. It said that she had just learned who he was, and she had something important to tell him as soon as she could see him again. It was now that Mr. Allworthy began to have some unexpected visitors. The first was Partridge. "You are a strange fellow," said Mr. Allworthy to the schoolteacher. "Why are you the servant of your own son?" "I am not his servant, sir," replied Partridge, "nor am I his father. And I wish, sir, that his mother were not his mother." He then told Mr. Allworthy the whole story. Mr. Allworthy was as shocked as Partridge himself. Then Mrs. Waters came hurrying into the room. "There, sir, is Jenny Jones, the mother of Mr. Jones. She will tell you that I am not his father," cried Partridge. "He is not," said Mrs. Waters. "You will remember, sir, that I promised you would know one day who the baby's father was. Now, if we may talk alone, I am here to tell you." Partridge left them, and she began her story. "Sir," she said, "you will remember a young man called Summer, who lived as a student in your house, and died very young. He was a handsome fellow, and very good-natured,
Indeed, I do remember him, said Mr. Allworthy. Was he the father of your son?
He was not, sir. He was the father of the child, but I am not his mother, and I am glad of it.
Be careful not to lie, said Mr. Allworthy coldly.
I did help when the child was born, she said, and I put him in your bed. But the baby was your sister's child.
My sister, Bridget? He cried. Can it be possible?
Have patience, sir, and I will tell you her sad story.
Mr. Allworthy listened with astonishment to the story of how his sister Bridget loved Summers, and how they hoped to marry, but were prevented by his sudden death. Bridget had then asked Jenny Jones to help her have her baby in secret.
But why, asked Allworthy, did she carry this secret with her out of the world?
I am sure she did not, said Mrs. Waters. She knew you loved her son, and always said she would tell you.
I must speak to her lawyer, said Mr. Allworthy.
Now that busy fellow, Mr. Dowling, whose work took him up and down the country, was in London, helping Mr. Blifil with some business. Mr. Allworthy sent for him at once. When she saw him, Mrs. Waters looked surprised, but she said nothing.
Mr. Dowling, said Mr. Allworthy, I have just found out that Mr. Jones is my own nephew.
Indeed, sir. I know, said Mr. Dowling.
Then why did you never mention it?
Well, sir, as you did not mention it, I thought you wished to hide it from the world.
I did not know, cried Mr. Allworthy. How could I?
By reading the letter that I brought from your sister the night she died. The letter that I gave to Mr. Blifil.
Heavens, said Mr. Allworthy, I never saw that letter.
Mrs. Waters now spoke.
I am surprised, sir, that if this gentleman knew that Mr. Jones was your nephew, he would want to see him hanged. Did you know, sir, that he visited Mr. Fitzpatrick and offered him money to swear that Mr. Jones had struck him first?
I did not, said Mr. Allworthy. Is this true?
It is true, sir, said Mr. Dowling. Mr. Blifil sent me to offer a bribe to Mr. Fitzpatrick, and another to the men who saw the fight.
I am astonished, said Mr. Allworthy. Send for Blifil, and tell him to bring the letter which his mother wrote me on her deathbed. I will see him when I return.
Chapter 23. The story reaches its conclusion. Mr. Allworthy now went to Mr. Weston's, and asked to see Sophia. After some moments of silence, he began to speak.
I am afraid, Miss Weston, that my family has made you most unhappy, and I believe I must blame myself. When your father and I agreed to your marriage to Mr. Blifil, I did not know as much about him as I do now. I wish to release you from the arrangement.
Sophia was more grateful than she could say.
I have another proposal, he continued. I have a young relation of very good character, and I will give him the fortune I planned to give to Mr. Blifil. Would you allow my relation to visit you?
Sophia, after a minute's silence, answered,
I have decided to listen to no such proposals at present, sir, but to return to Somerset to take care of my father."
"Then, Miss Weston," replied Mr. Allworthy, "my relation must continue to suffer disappointment."
Sophia smiled. "Can he suffer if he does not know me?"
"Indeed he knows you," said Mr. Allworthy, "for he is my own nephew, Mr. Jones."
"Can it be possible?" cried Sophia.
"Indeed, madam, he is my own sister's son. Oh, Miss Weston, I have treated him cruelly. I shall never be able to reward him for his sufferings without your help. Will you not see him? I know he has faults, but I believe he has those good qualities which will make him a good husband."
At this point, Mr. Weston joined them.
"See here," he cried. "I have a letter from my cousin, Lady Bellaston. She says that murderer, Jones, has got out of prison, and I should lock up my daughter again. Neighbour, you don't know what trouble daughters are."
"Mr. Weston," said Mr. Allworthy, "I shall return now to see Mr. Jones at my lodgings, and invite you to follow."
It is impossible to imagine a more tender or moving scene than the meeting between uncle and nephew. It is beyond my power to describe the joy that was felt on both sides. After Mr. Allworthy had lifted Tom from his feet, where he had thrown himself, he held him in his arms and cried,
"Oh, my child, how I have been to blame for my unkind suspicions, and the sufferings they have caused you."
"I have not been punished more than I deserve," said Tom. Mr. Allworthy then told Tom all he knew about Blifil, and promised to give him all that he needed to make him happy. "I owe everything to your great goodness, dear uncle," said Tom. "But, sir, there is one sadness which I must confess to you. I have lost my angel." Here the conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Weston, who had heard the news from Sophia and could not wait to see Tom.
"My old friend," he cried out, "I am glad to see you, with all my heart. All the past must be forgotten. We must forgive each other. I'll take you to my Sophie this moment."
As Tom dressed for his visit to Sophia, Partridge was so full of joy that he made a dozen mistakes. "I always told you, sir," he laughed, "that one day you would have it in your power to make my fortune." Tom happily agreed. And now Tom went to Mr. Weston's with his uncle. He was indeed a very fine sight. Sophia had also dressed carefully, and looked so extremely beautiful that Allworthy whispered to Weston that she was the finest sight in the world. They all had tea, and then the lovers were left alone. It was strange that two people who had so much to say to each other when there was danger, and who so wanted to rush into each other's arms when there were barriers, were now quiet and still. They were now safe and free to say or do what they pleased, but they sat in perfect silence. At last Tom said, "Oh, my Sophia, you know all about me now. Can I ever hope for forgiveness?" "You must forgive yourself, Mr. Jones," she replied. "Then will you believe that my wicked ways are behind me now?" he begged. "I will never marry a man
whose word I cannot trust," she answered. "Could you be faithful, after what I know?" Tom took her hand and pulled her to the mirror. "Look there, my charming angel," he cried. "Look at that lovely face, that shape, those eyes, and that mind that shines through those eyes. There is my proof. For what man who has these could be unfaithful?" "Then perhaps, Mr. Jones," said Sophia shyly, "we could talk about marriage." "Say when, my Sophia," cried Tom. "Love is impatient." "Perhaps in 12 months," said Sophia sweetly, and Tom took her in his arms and kissed her with a passion he had never felt before. At this moment, Mr. Weston burst into the room, and with his hunting voice cried out,
"Go to her, boy. That's it, my honeys. Well, is it agreed? Will you marry tomorrow?"
"No, no," cried Sophia, "not tomorrow."
"Yes, yes," cried her father. "Will you disobey me?"
"Then," said Sophia, "if my father wishes it?" "Yes." Her father called Mr. Allworthy.
"Good news, neighbour," he shouted. "We'll have a wedding tomorrow, and I bet you £5 we will have a baby boy 9 months from tomorrow."
And so, reader, all ended well for our hero, our heroine, and their faithful friends. And when Mr. Weston became the grandfather of 2 fine babies, a boy and a girl, he told the world that their childish voices were sweeter to him than the music of all the hunting dogs in England.